Today we're going to discuss some basic human facial proportions. But what I want to make clear is that even though these apply to the majority of human beings, they are in no way a rule that every face follows. Every human being, no matter where they come from, their gender, their ethnicity, they have a variety of proportions within their face that mostly follow these rules. So today we're going to just talk about a made-up human being, but when you ever draw yourself, you should always be paying close attention to what you look like specifically and not just trying to draw a person that fits these rules. So your worksheet probably looks like this, where the lines are very, very light. That's on purpose so that they sort of fade into the background when you finish this practice drawing. However, I'm going to work on this one where I've darkened up the lines just so that it's easier for you to see in the camera as I'm drawing. The top fourth of a person's head is covered in hair. The top line on your worksheet indicates the hairline, the dividing line between forehead and hair. So in a moment, we're going to give our face outline some hair using the hairline to guide the placement. Now, there's always people who question this. It seems like that's a weird place to put hair. So if you take a look at this example, you'll see that this person has a hairline at the top 1/4 of their head. Now, I have taken into account the fact that they've clearly had some hairstyling that adds body on top of their head, so I haven't included that at the very, very top of their head, as you can see here. But with her hair pulled back, so you can see where it begins to grow, it is the top 4th. So you should have no baldness above this line. For the purposes of this activity, I don't want you to draw somebody with a shaved head because then you're not demonstrating that you're understanding of how hairlines work. So here is my finished example. This person has a part, but that part still begins at that line that we're discussing here, the top 4th. And some hair can absolutely come below that. So if you have bangs, if you have anything that is not totally pulled back on your hair, exposing your hairline, then you would want to add hair also below this line and obviously covering the top part of the head. Now let's take a look at what that might look like on paper. So here's my paper. Very often, people want to draw, so this is what not to do, hair that looks like a swim cap. So they go like this and they say, "Miss, I'm done." But that would indicate, with your ears being down here, by the way, that they've shaved the sides of their head. And that's not a normal hairstyle last time I checked. Hair grows all the way down on the sides, and hair is growing across a rounded head. So no matter how great your haircut is, it is not cut straight across. It'll always curve somewhat. In fact, it'll sort of curve like this, down and across. So if you're thinking about doing a boy's haircut, so very, very short, very often it's going to curve across your forehead and then come down at the edges towards the ears. If this boy's haircut is a little bit longer, you could add in some lines to indicate those hairs, but you want to treat any of those lines like an actual hair. So if the hairs are short, you draw short hairs. If the hairs are long, you draw long hairs, and think about the direction hair grows. If you go like this, it looks like that person has glued hair in a lump onto their head. It doesn't make sense. Now for a longer hairstyle, you could put a part, say we'll do a center part, and then the hair would begin to go from there. Say this person's got the trendy curtain bangs. You would want to add those in all through here and then add some thickness at the top, and then they're going to cut, that hair will come down the side as well. You might think that's way too much hair, but you would be wrong. The most common mistake that children make when drawing people is they draw the eyes too high and they do not put enough hair on the top of their head. So just trust me on this part. Go with me here. Use this top line, top fourth. The entire thing has to be covered with hair. So I would continue. This person with long hair and a center part would go something like this. If their hair is tied back, you would still show the hairline as if it's short hair, for example. So something like this. But then you could add lines to indicate that the hair is being pulled back towards the back of their head. And if you wanted to show that hair visible over the top surface of their head, you could show the lump of a ponytail and then have something go like this, or you could even show like a larger bun happening up there, whatever you think is going to work well for your person. But this top fourth of the head must be covered with hair. Okay, so for part 2, once you have done the hair, you're going to locate the vertical lines that divide the third section from the top of the head into 5 equal pieces. So your eyes are halfway down your face and they are 1/5 the width of your head. Now we are going to work on drawing those 2 eyes. If you don't believe me, once again, that this is where eyes are located, here's our example face once again. So if you check out this middle section of her face, her eyes are below the halfway line. So anywhere around that halfway line, on or even below. And you can see I haven't taken into account all the extra black eyeliner, which is designed to make an eye look larger. But her eye itself is 1/5, no larger. So when we talked about hair, I said the common problem that people do is they put their eyes too high and not enough hair. The common problem with eyes, very common to humans, is that we overemphasize the eyes and we draw them very, very large, when in fact they are not that large. So let's talk about what it might look like to go ahead and draw those eyes. So here is my facial outline that's already got hair on it. The eyes are halfway down, so the second line with the little tick mark. So that's helping me see how wide those eyes should be. One common problem people do is obviously, let me find a silly face here. They try to do these cartoon eyes. And that doesn't make sense because your eyes are not a loose eyeball per se stuck on your head, but they are in fact covered with eyelids at the top and the bottom. And therefore, the shape that we really see on an eye is a football shape. Okay, so no round eyes, no oval eyes, no anime eyes. I'm sorry. You really have to pay attention to a realistic shape, which is a football shape. If you study an eye in detail, you'll see there's often sort of a tear duct visible on the inside. That's not super important to me that you get those tiny details in today, but if you'd like to, you may. So on your outline, you want to get that football shape in at or below the halfway line. You want to try to get those 2 shapes to match. And then the inner details also matter. So inside of your football shape, do not draw the entire circle of the colored part, the iris of the eye. That makes that person look terrified. If you look at yourself in the mirror, you don't see that entire circle inside of your eye unless you have just seen a ghost and your eyes are open incredibly wide. So what you want to do instead is imagine that you could see that whole circle and just draw like parentheses. So if I imagine that whole circle there, because it's cut off by the top and the bottom eyelid. Then in the center of that eye is a pupil. That's the black spot. You can color that in. That makes things look more realistic. But this eyeball is not done. That's not it. We should not have naked eyes. So looking at a realistic human face, we all have within that eye other details. So most people have an eyelid wrinkle above their eye, and it sort of follows the top edge of where their eyeball, the actual ball of the eye, is hidden underneath their skin. And every human being, male and female, has eyelashes. Please, please, please do not do spider eyelashes. Your eyelashes do not look like that. If you remember our example, even though she had a ton of makeup on her eyes, still didn't look like that. Instead, eyelashes begin at the inner part of the eye and they curve out and over towards the outer part of the eye. You can do lower eyelashes, but honestly, they tend to look a little bit creepy. So small lower eyelashes are best so that you don't overdo it. Those upper eyelashes should not be too crazy thick and long because that's realistically not really what's happening up there. So go ahead and draw your two matching eyes halfway down the head, 1/5 of the width of the face only, no larger and no smaller. For part 3, the bottom fourth of the face is divided into 2 equal pieces horizontally. The mouth is centered in the top half of the bottom fourth, and the edges of the mouth are aligned with the centers of the eyes. So next we're going to draw a mouth on this face. What this looks like is, if you look at our model here, she has a mouth centered. Notice the corners of her mouth connect with the centers of her eyes, okay? So we are going to use some markings to help us divide that out. Your mouth actually looks and stretches even wider than that when you are smiling. But we are not going to worry too much about the specifics of that right now. She has a slight smile, and you can draw any sort of facial expression that you want, but you're going for something that fits these guidelines. And notice we're leaving the bottom eighth. So we're dividing this fourth into 2 pieces. The bottom eighth is empty. It's for chin. And the mouth is going to float within this section. Some people's is a little higher. Some are a little lower. On this model or example, I tried to just center mine in that space. So you choose. Let's take a look at how to actually draw that. So I'm going to go to this. I'm going to make an estimate about halfway down through that bottom section. I can use my fingers to compare. Same, great. And I'm going to draw that line. I also need guidelines down from the middles of the eyes. So I'm trying to go straight down. And this gives me a rectangle within which to draw a mouth. So what I don't want to see for mouths are silly baby doll mouths like this. Those are cute on cartoons, but they're not actually realistic on people. And smiley faces are also not realistic. Everybody, again, males and females, we all have lips. So you may not skip the lips, but it is helpful to begin with sort of like your smiley face, so you know how wide things should be. So here I have centered. Look how silly that looks without lips. And my line connects to the middles of the eyes, and now I'm going to add lips. Your bottom lip is typically thicker than your top lip. So what you don't want to do is do a thin bottom lip. That's incredibly unusual. And now the top lip is going to be a little thinner. When you draw this top lip, please remember this thing, this little bow shape at the top of someone's lip, it's not as enormous as we often think it is. So when you over-exaggerate this, it looks very strange. When you make it very pointy, it looks very strange. So if you study your lips closely in the mirror as a model, you'll see that it's a tiny indent, and then it tapers on down to the side. And that's really all you need to do for lips. Some people's lips are thicker, some people's lips are thinner, but they should all reach approximately to the centers of the eyes. For the next part, we're going to draw a nose. The nose begins between the eyes and extends to the 3rd quarter line of the face. It's at least as wide as the center 5th of the face. So now we're going to draw a nose on the face outline. If you don't believe me about noses, let's take a look at our example. So her nose begins right between her eyes and extends down to this third horizontal line marking our paper. And notice the edges of her nostrils actually extend past that center fifth of the face. And she does not have an incredibly large nose. So your nose must at least touch those lines or extend past them. Again, every human being is different, and to have a wider nose is fine. But honestly, to have a thinner nose looks like it's been altered by some kind of plastic surgery. Also notice that you do not see lines running down the edges of the majority of her nose. There is nothing there. It's simply a change in elevation. And if we were talking about shading, we would talk about shading there. But where you see lines is at the tip of the nose and sometimes between the eyes, depending on how dark those shadows are. So I've drawn some lines between the eyes and lines at the bottom of the nose, and that is it. Let's look at some do's and don'ts for drawing the nose. So remember that nose is as wide as the center part of the eyes, and it extends down to this line above the lips. What I do not want to see is the boot nose. I don't want to see a pig snout. And I really don't want you to overemphasize the nostril. So people draw a nose and then they draw these big black nostril holes. That is incredibly unusual. We actually don't often see people's nostril holes as big black blobs because it's simply not the realistic way that they look. So you can put inverted parentheses between the eyes, like where the glasses would rest. And at the tip of the nose, you want to focus on the edges that you see. So you see the tip of a person's nose, sort of looks like a smile. And you would see the edges of their nostrils, sort of like this. And that's about it. Some people can combine this, because they're pretty classy, into one nice even line. So if you can get a line that curves down, up, and back down, that actually looks pretty good too. I've got a little bit uneven. I'll work on that. So that's a tricky way to do it, but that'll also get your nose done. What I often recommend for noses is less is more. Don't overdo it. Again, absolutely do not draw lines down the side of your nose. You end up looking like a lion or a tiger. We do not see these. They are a change in elevation only. So go ahead and get your lines. Could be as simple as 3 to finish the tip of the nose. Last but not least, the final part of the details. Your neck is as wide as the middle 3/5 of the face. The ears begin at the top of the eyes and end at the bottom of the nose. And your facial outline should have some neck, ears, eyebrows, any other accessories you would like, and a name. So here are some examples again to prove the sizes that I just explained to you. Neck is as wide as the middle 3/5 of the face, not a skinny neck. Ears go from the top of the eyes to the bottom of the nose. Eyebrows, obviously arching over the top of the eye. And any other accessories that you might want, plus a name, would also be excellent. Let's go ahead and practice drawing that together. So, neck. Go from the outside corners of the eyes. Give yourself a mark straight down that you can erase later. And then just a gentle curving line. You probably don't have a lot of space to add shoulders. If you really want to, they would go probably off the page because they're quite wide. Ears extend from the top of the eyes to the bottom of the nose. They're quite long. Do not draw the entire ear as if you're looking at a person from the side, okay? Instead, it's flattened. So think of it like a C shape that has been flattened against the head, because only when they turn their head totally to the side do you actually see their entire ear. You can add in some detailed lines if you'd like. If your person has incredibly long hair, you could skip one of those ears, but I'd like to see at least one. So you could have their hair being covered on one side, but from the top of the eyes to the bottom of the nose, at least on one side, so I know you know. Imagine their hair is tucked behind. Eyebrows just curve over the top of the eye, leave some space. You can sculpt those brows any which way you like, but they are often naturally pretty thick. Don't do a single line, or that looks like it's been overly plucked and shaved. Neck, ears, eyebrows. Give your person a name, so write it somewhere on the paper. And then any other accessories that you'd like to give them. Piercings, glasses, anything else that you think would look great on their face. Go ahead and do that. And your person is done.